Okay, I want to say welcome to all for coming, and welcome you to the regular meeting of the Lake Lure Town Council, regular meeting on March 12, 2019 at 5 p.m. We'll begin with the invocation and pledge of allegiance. I'll ask you all to stand. Gentlemen, remove your caps. Please bow your heads and pray with me. Heavenly Father, thank you for the many blessings you've bestowed on our community. As we gather here in public service to our town and its citizens, we ask for your divine guidance and wisdom to help us govern effectively, to do what serves the greater good and best interest of our citizens, and to be good stewards and guardians of this beautiful place we get to call home. In your name, we humbly ask these things. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Say the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and be seated, please. Okay, our first item of business is the adoption of our agenda. So I will ask my fellow commissioners if they have any changes, deletions, additions to propose.
Mr. Mayor, I have two proposed amendments. One is under consent agenda B, the proposed resolution dissolving the Asset Management Advisory Board.
Yes,
I ask that that be moved to unfinished business item A. I have a couple of amendments to it.
All right.
The second amendment to this agenda is under consent agenda E, where it says budget amendment 240 for the beach walkway on Peninsula. I'd like to add and budget amendment 241 for cost sharing dredging work at Firefly Cove, which we were handed a copy of during the break, and that we had just discussed at the Marine Commission.
Okay. And keep that in the consent agenda.
And note that it does say 70,000, but up above it, it says total project is 140,000, which that covers.
Right. Okay, so we have two changes. Any other ones?
No.
So we have a motion to make those changes. Do we have a second? Second by Commissioner Cameron. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, that brings me to the mayor's communications. I thought I would take an opportunity, since it's not on the agenda in any other location, to give us all a little update on where we stand with the dam engineering studies. We had a conference call, the town manager and Public Works Director and myself, just a little few minutes before the last Marine Commission meeting, to get an update from Schnabel Engineering, who are the engineers who've been working on these various studies. There are two task orders, task order 1 and 2, that we've authorized that have a number of different component studies to them. And we are within probably a week from having all of those studies completed and delivered to us for review and consideration. And there's, I'm guessing at the number, there's probably 7 or 8 different pieces that include everything from a study of the hydraulics of a design flood event that would likely hit our area, our 95 square mile tributary area, and probably well exceed anything that we've seen here in a long time, including the storms from last year, and how that will be handled by the dam, and how much of that will be able to be stored, and how much of it would pass over the dam and wind up downstream. That leads into what's known as an inundation study that predicts the effect on the downstream side of the river and areas based on the topography downstream of areas that would be flooded, and all of the impacted properties, especially dwellings downstream. So that study will take into effect that design flood and the H&H, they call it, study. There's been a study on the what they call a wet side of the dam. Divers went down, videotaped the condition of the dam on the side that hadn't previously been assessed during the prior engineering studies, just to see any evidence of damage or deterioration that needs to be addressed. I have 4 CDs of videotapes that show what the divers saw. I'm not quite sure what I'm looking at, but apparently our engineers see something I don't. I'm looking for a 400-pound catfish, actually, in that I heard they're down there, but I haven't seen them yet. So they're working on the, there did not seem to be, I'll just give you kind of a preview, there didn't seem to be any significant damage or anomalies to the wet side of the dam. And that was kind of good news for us, and so we'll see what the final report says, but that was the preliminary comments from our engineers. They also are looking at the what they call the scouring analysis. You know, if and when our dam were to be overtopped by a very serious storm, and it's designed actually to allow for that, what effect would that have on the area right behind the dam? Would it cause the riverbed and area around that foundation to be dislodged of some kind or eroded? And so the scouring study looks at what effect that would have, predicts what effect it would have, and if there is any impact on the dam, what is it? And so the scouring study's been done. We have a copy of it. I haven't read through it yet, but I intend to do that this week. So there are numerous, and the main piece of work is called a finite element analysis, which is a gigantic virtual computer model built of our dam and its particular design and construction materials, and takes into account a general assessment of its condition and subjects it then in the computer, so we don't actually have to see what would happen in the event we had an earthquake or one of these overtopping events or other kinds of potentially devastating stresses placed on the dam. And so there'll be an engineering analysis and outcome conclusions reached from that. And all of that then is put together into what they call a condition assessment, which is a summary of their view of our dam and what its potential problems are, and recommendations about how they think we should go about addressing those repairs if necessary, or renovations or problems. And so all of that is pending, and we're a week or so away from having all the written documents for review. Once we have those, we'll spend some time ourselves reviewing those, but we really need to have the engineers with us to go through it, explain where we don't understand what they mean when they say something in engineerese. And so we're going to set up a workshop of the that's where we're heading, of the council. It'll be a public workshop, it has to be. The engineers will come here and work with us. It'll be a working session that will discuss their report and what it all means and what they recommend, and then we'll decide where we go from there. And we talked to them about holding that either in the last week in March or the first week in April. They're polling their team availability, and we will be polling our commission, which I've not done yet. So that's where we are with the dam. We are on the eve of I guess, the next step in the evolution of the town addressing our 93-year-old dam.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes,
if I may, we had conversations with the county about coming to one of their board meetings and making a presentation. What we may want to do is, in this workshop, extend a special invitation to the county commissioners to come and be a part of the audience when Schnabel makes their presentation. That may be better than us making a presentation there with Schnabel.
Well, we would certainly offer that. We have the chairman here with us, and I think it would be great if we could have staff and some of their commissioners and anyone from the county, the public that wants to come. And we'll let them decide whether that's a good session in lieu of having us go there and talk about how we operate the dam and what impact that is. We'll just refer that to them and see. But we'll invite them. I think that's a good idea, Shannon. All right, other questions from the council on that? Okay, so then let's move on, Shannon, into your section, which is the town manager communications. You have a few items on there.
We do. The first one is the hoist project, and we have basically the hoist there, the intake raises and lowers an apparatus to allow us to allow water to flow through the generators or cut it off. And so before we put the small generator back online, what we want to make sure we do is replace the hoist that's there now. Commissioner Cameron has been good enough to take a look at that project. He's made a recommendation, so we're going to send that to Schnabel. And so they're looking at it now, and so they'll give us some feedback. Bottom line is we'll take bids on that project. We've already received 5 or 6 names, company names that could participate in that bidding process. So once we have the process down pat, then we can release requests for proposals and take bids on that project. We should result in a savings. But we've got to do that first before we could put the small generator back online. So just wanted to give you an update where we are with that. The other 3 projects, and they may flow one right into another. These have to do with NCDOT, and I'm going to talk about these in reverse order. We had recently a workshop where we asked a facilitator to come and help us itemize some of the parks and recreation projects that we would like to do over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And in that meeting, one of the rangers from Chimney Rock State Park spoke and basically let us know that egress from the state park would be coming at some point in the future. So it's definitely coming. When it's coming, we don't know. But egress would be down the Lago Vista entrance, which is behind the Lake Lure Inn, and then it would basically, somehow we're going to have to work out how we get from the end of Lago Vista to Memorial Highway. So there's some planning that has to be done. But we heard the state park state in a meeting that egress, the way that you would leave the state park, would be coming down through our town center. So we will be having conversations with DOT about that soon so we can start the planning process. The next item is Buffalo Creek road failure. We're going to have a meeting this Thursday at 3 o'clock. You're welcome to attend. But NCDOT will be at that meeting, and some folks from DEQ, North Carolina. And so we're going to be talking about that area. There is a landslide that seemingly is underway, and that's why that road is failing. It's a significant area, and so we'll have more information about that this Thursday. Preliminary talks with DOT, they're saying that there may be a rerouting of Buffalo Creek Road rather than a repair because of the scope of the slide area. But if you're interested in that, come this Thursday at 3 p.m. and DOT will be in this room and they can share additional information with you at that time. And the last one is that for some time now, DOT has been exploring concepts and ideas about building a bridge to replace the bridge and roadway that currently exists over the dam. They've looked at going over the lake, close to the dam, a little further away from the dam, on the lake side of the dam, and then they've taken some preliminary looks at on the east side of the dam or downstream of the dam, having a bridge there. So we had a conference call with NCDOT recently, and we expressed concerns about the various options that they proposed. And so what we are going to do is try to explore some additional ideas with them about possibly making a repair of the existing bridge on the dam and telescope that in with any work that we may need to do on the dam too. So we spoke briefly about that with Schnabel, our dam engineers today, so they're going to be sending us additional information. And then DOT, we're going to invite DOT to a meeting to go over the report with Schnabel so they understand the condition of the dam. So that's those two items in brief. Be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions for him? Thank you. Yeah, there's a lot going on here. All right, so let's move on then into the agenda. We have a couple of public hearings up next, and we have sign-up sheets over here for each of the public hearings, and then a little bit later we have a time in every one of our council meetings for public comment. People can come up and comment or ask a question or whatever. I just saw one name on the public comment sheet so far, and no names on the public hearing sheet. So if anybody does want to speak, please sign up there. So let's go ahead and begin our first public hearing. We'll call that to order. We have, this is a hearing that deals with ordinance number 190312, which is an ordinance concerning commercial lighting and the amortization of lighting, I guess, Brad, that is out of compliance.
Yes, sir.
And you're going to give us a little bit of background, and then we'll give the public an opportunity if anyone wants to comment.
Yes, sir. Want to make sure that everybody, that we're all holding the same hymnal here. On the dais, you should have gotten a copy that says the right-hand top corner amended. I want to express my gratitude to Commissioner Weber for taking time out of his busy day yesterday to show me some very egregious numbering faux pas that I have done, and the one that's in your packet. So they are correct now, and again, I do thank you for that, sir. This has to do with non-compliant commercial lighting. Our current ordinance in section 92058 is the conditional use outdoor lighting standards and requirements. Very specific for new construction over 1,000 square feet. These requirements are in place for new construction, commercial use. There are a smattering of commercial operations in town, probably around 25 to 30. We did a rough rolling poll, looking at parking lots, looking at various places, and there are some of these that are not compliant. Policy CA-1-41, parentheses 1 of the Town of Lake Lure Comprehensive Plan speaks to light pollution and a desire to do away with glare and adverse lighting that is detrimental to circadian rhythms of wildlife, of people trying to cross the road in glared areas and parking lots and stuff like that, and look toward more of a downlighting, what they call a full cutoff fixture that allows for light to stay on a site or stay in a specific area where it's needed, whether they're pedestrian bollards through a park or whether it's a streetscape where you're walking down a boardwalk or something along those lines. So this was brought to the planning board as a new commercial lighting ordinance, and really just got knocked around a little bit. And before it was all shaken out, we figured that what we had in place already in the conditional use requirements for commercial lighting is pretty sufficient. It's actually very good in comparison with other jurisdictions our size and the needs that we have in this area for that kind of lighting. And one thing led to another, and discussion was brought up about, well, is there any way that we can incorporate this into the existing lighting that's in place? And a tried and true way of doing that is an amortization program. It's done with signs, it's done with structures, and in this case, it could certainly be done with lighting. So what is before you today, 19-03-12, is a proposed 10-year amortization program to, for existing non-conforming commercial lighting. Not gotten into the nuts and bolts yet of how that we're going to administer it, but I did administer an amortization program in a previous jurisdiction when it dealt with signs. And the first thing to do is you identify your folks that may be out of compliance, communicate with them via letter, and that would happen immediately. And then have an opportunity for a discussion. If they feel like they're in compliance, certainly we can look at that. But you start the initial conversation, you get the communication out, and essentially put folks on notice that this program, if it's adopted, would be in place. And then you let it run. 10 years seems like a long time, but I've been advised by council that while it is a long time, it's probably it would survive a court challenge. So in those terms, and it also gives folks a chance to budget. We have some big box retail that's located on our number 9 corridor that is, a pretty egregious offender of this. But we've also got some mom and pop stuff around too. And it will give everybody, 10 years will give everybody a chance to budget and allow to either put this in with phases with new fixtures or to retrofit the fixtures that they have to enable them to shine in a downward manner. So that's what's before y'all tonight, and that's really all I have. Are there any questions?
Now, we are including the utility companies in this.
Yes, sir. I have a meeting next March 21st with Betty Aldridge with Duke Power. Ms. Knatt's going to be joining me with that. She's our street lighting overseer right now. And I do have current money in my budget for replacing some of those fixtures, as well as some of the human scale fixtures that were part of a previous project that was funded. So that's going to get kicked off. Yes, sir.
Because I do have the concern that they are not putting the shields on the new fixtures at all.
Okay.
And I actually got a call from our neighbors at Chimney Rock about a new LED that went in, and
Okay.
5 neighbors want it removed.
Oh, my.
But just from the experience of the fixtures I'm seeing go in, they are not shielded.
Okay.
So give you an example, going up Boys Camp Road, there's a floodlight there. That's a utility floodlight. That's not the church's. That's a utility floodlight, has no shielding on it. That's when it blinds everybody coming down. But the fixtures I've seen so far from Duke Energy are non-shielded. We've got to get shields on these fixtures, and we really need to stress that to them, because that's the only way you're going to get rid of that light contamination.
And that's one of the purposes of this meeting, is to address, things like that, as well as the other elements of it. I do know that they are retrofitting ones that are going bad with the LED, which
Right,
is
they've got a
a
lot
step
of-
in the right direction. And they're doing that on their own accord, so we're fortunate in that regard. But yes, sir, that's duly noted, and that will be part of the discussion with Ms. Aldridge.
Do these regulations apply to government buildings?
Yes, sir.
For use of commercial, non-residential?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good.
Yes, sir.
I think they should.
These would apply to us.
Okay. All right, any other discussion? Now we could hear from the public. Is there anyone signed up that would like to make a comment, ask a question, provide any input? Seeing none, then, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion made.
Motion by Commissioner Weber.
I'll second.
And Commissioner Cameron seconds that. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. All right, the public hearing then is closed on that subject. Brings us to the second public hearing. This is on the capital improvements plan. Sam, this is your baby. We have in front of us, I guess, in our packet, the proposed CIP. Just tell us what we're looking at a little bit.
Okay.
And
Do you want me, I notice it's on, twice on the agenda. Do you want me to go through the projects, or how do you want me to handle this? It's hard to comment
when you don't know what you're...
you're,
Yeah, and let's go ahead and do that, and that would make the second time we see it quicker.
Okay.
All right,
I'll try to be quick.
okay.
Okay. We had a meeting last month on our capital improvement plans. We met with the department heads. The CIP is basically a planning tool, a financial planning tool that we have projects, equipment, buildings that have a useful life longer than a year and has a cost of over $5,000. Had a meeting, and I'm gonna list these projects by fund and just kind of give an update. On the administration portion of it, we had a heating and air system replacement. We moved it up to 1920. In the police department, we have a vehicle replacement, radio replacements, and mobile data terminals. In the fire department, we have Scott Air Packs, fire department expansion, which would be financed, a utility terrain vehicle. And in the public works, we have a local street paving for $185,000. We moved speed limit signs at $12,000, a dump truck replacement, and we included a trailer for the mini excavator that we just bought. Also, there's another truck replacement in there. Economic development, we have a website, application, we moved to 1920. In community development, we have Duck Cove Properties demolition, street lighting replacement, and a vehicle replacement. In Parks and Rec, actually, it's Parks Rec Lake. And this was produced with Vital Clarity and the Parks and Rec Board. Also was involved with this, was a truck replacement, a small area rec plan, landscaping Morris Park, a barge, a campground, and a marina and boardwalk to be financed. And what I did, all the financing, I just, in future years, I just put down the amount of debt service that would cost the town. And you can see the effects of that in future years.
Do you want to talk about that one?
Sure.
Or do you want to continue and wait till?
Yeah. Let me just finish up here in the general fund. Main beach house repairs at $20,000. Golf course, there's a golf cart repair, clubhouse remodel, and creek bank erosion repairs. And that is all for the general fund.
Okay.
Okay. Under the Parks, Rec, and Lake, we got one new item, small area rec plan number 2. Was that a result of the workshop?
Yes.
Okay, what particular area is that for?
Dean?
It's for the golf course. It's the second part of the study. We were gonna do the planning phase with this year's budget, and then the engineering and the other phase to that. I can't even think what I'm saying.
The second part?
Yeah, that'd be the second part of that study in this year of what we came up with out of this first study.
There's 10,000 allocated this year for a small.
Correct,
repair, yeah.
for the small area recreation plan for the golf course area, which from the time that was all discussed and so on, was to look at that area and determine if and where things like all the active sports complexes could go, the basketball court, the pickleball court that people want, the tennis court, and where those could go. And then most recently, we talked about possibly adding into that, thinking about and looking at a dog park area, if feasible. Of course, and what all that would take in land, what impact it would have on that. And that was the study that was so, and that was all part of the Morse Park plan, was to move that stuff out of here to where it'd be out there, the active sports, and this could be more for passive. So, okay. The other thing in there was the radios disappeared from the list. Was that put into the operational budget like you had talked to me about before? Okay, so that 2,800 is not in here, it's in the operational budget for you. Okay, I'm good. Yep, thanks.
And all these, when we approve these tonight, all these will funnel into the operational budget, and when we have meetings next month, then we can decide if we can fund them again or not, so.
Okay.
It's just a process.
Yep.
All right, water and sewer, the only capital expenditure in the water and sewer is in the water portion of it, for Firefly Cove well system. I guess it's a backup for the system.
There's only one well, I remember, and that's a critical issue that needs to be, so this is to drill another well?
Right. No.
It's a pump station.
We actually have engineers that's looking into that because everything will have to be engineered because it's a public water system. So once they come back with their answer, then we put money into next year's budget to try to move forward and correct the problem that we have.
Commissioner Kilby asked if this was going to be an addition of another well. The answer to that is no. What we're looking at
Tying it, I remember now.
exactly.
Sorry.
Integrating the two systems.
Age.
So, Sam, this would cover both the water and sewer, right?
Right.
So I don't see anything in here with regards to the sewer system.
I'll let David discuss that, but it's more of the sewer system's more of a regulatory driven system. So,
Well, all we're trying to do as far as the plant what I've talked with Don Byers, which helps a lot with the plant and the collection system, and what we're trying to do on the capital end, the stuff that we can control, is keep what we've got maintained and going without dumping a lot of money into the plant and into the collection system, because as you all know, in a few future years from now, we're gonna switch over to all this new. Now, as far as the finance and the stuff for the new sewer project
That's really
and
what I was
stuff like,
asking.
yeah, I don't have those numbers, so I don't have anything to work off on,
But just-
on that.
It just seems like, Sam, that's going to be the largest, from what I can foresee out there, the largest capital expenditure investment that the town will be making in the next 5 years. The engineering expense on it alone, which I presume will have to be spent in the next fiscal year in order to comply with the schedule that we've now committed to with DEQ, should be somewhere in here, right?
no,
No. Oh, because it's coming out of the green,
it's funny, it's coming out of a capital reserve fund. It has its own fund by itself. Those funds versus like these operational funds, they can go on year to year without yes, and we can make adjustments to that.
so you don't necessarily show them
We
in.
don't show it in this portion of the
Oh,
budget.
okay, all right. And would that also be, I don't want to jump ahead, you'll get to the electric
Hydroelectric.
operations, but is the dam in the same category?
No.
No,
No, not yet. It might be, but,
but it's not in here right now either, right?
right, the dam repair.
Okay, I didn't mean to jump ahead, but thanks. On the sewer, yeah, okay.
Okay. Move on to the hydroelectric, and we also got Vital Clarity involved with the stakeholders on this portion of the hydroelectric fund. We go out 5 years on projects. This year's projects total $430,000, which is it's a lot. So, but they're all needed. So we've kind of changed it through the meeting we had with Vital Clarity.
What? We changed the hydro CIP based on the meeting with Vital Clarity?
And the stakeholders.
I'll be glad to explain.
Because what I'm looking at are a lot different numbers than what we had in our CIP meeting workshop.
That's right.
Right. So I gave you a preliminary sheet, which is what you have in front of you at the workshop. And so that was a draft that was based on a preliminary meeting with the dam operators, with the Wilson Mechanical, with Clifton Power. And so we basically took a run at this, and then we took that draft document back to that group and then some, and Vital Clarity facilitated that meeting, so they all did a check on this document. And so we finalized this document, and the final document is what was given to Sam. And so then Sam programmed those items in the CIP. So what you have there is more like a worksheet than the CIP.
Okay, because I was looking at even the 1920 numbers here, first half and second half, versus what we have here. This is showing 50,000 for penstock repairs, and then 50,000 in 20 and 21, versus what even this draft had 90 for the second half. My concern is that going to be enough to get the repairs done on the penstock that we need done? So when the second generator, the small generator does come back online, then it's going to be able to handle the flow. Now, I know the hoist replacement is the priority. That's 300,000 on the CIP with Commissioner Cameron's plan. Hopefully we'll come in well under that, but still we're allocating the 300 on the CIP. And then the one thing that really caught my attention on this new one is the replaced bearings on the small generator, $10,000. We haven't even put it back in service. Why are we having to replace bearings on it already? After all that overhaul for the last 2 years, and now we have to replace bearings on it and hadn't even been operated. I mean, that's just my question.
Yeah, I'd like to address that. All the money that has been spent thus far is on the wet end of that generator system.
Just a turbine.
Yeah, on the turbine itself.
Okay.
That gets me every time.
Call an electrician.
Mr. Long,
That's right. But all the money that has been spent over the past couple of years is on the turbine part of it, the wet unit, not the generator itself.
Okay.
And what we're talking about with the bearings of that is before we pick that generator up and put it back over on this new stuff, there's an oil pump, which is a fairly cheap piece that we've already recommended to be replaced. But there's bearings that hold that rotor and stator and all that. You're familiar with that. And Clifton Power and John Wilson both have said that in the past, when those units have been taken off and put back on without checking those bearings, they run several months, 6 months, whatever, you have a bearing failure.
No, that makes sense.
So while we have it off, it only makes good sense to go ahead and check them, and if it needs it, let's do it, let's get it fixed. And when we put it back on, hopefully.
So that $10,000 would be to replace them. If you check them and they're okay,
That's exactly right. If you get in there and you see there's no need to do it, then you move forward. But if you have to repair them, it costs money.
Well, you and I talked about this, and that's just the lower bearing.
That is
There are
just,
3 bearings.
Yes.
In the generator.
Yep.
the lowest one
Yep.
is the easiest to get at, the easiest
Yes,
to
it is.
replace, and therefore
Yep.
the cheapest.
Yeah.
We don't know about the other two, and what
Yeah.
I had asked you to ask them was, is it possible, and Bob may know the answer to this, before we were to mate the generator to the turbine on the shaft, is there a possibility of putting a shaft up in the generator and spinning it before it's mated to determine if there's a overheat? It's all overheating.
Yep.
There's heat sensors on each
Yep.
set of bearings,
Yep.
and when it's running badly, it
Yep.
overheats. We could see that. I wonder if they could spin it up before we go to the trouble of,
From what Charlie and John has told me, I've met with both of them, Shannon has as well, we've had a few conversations over it. When they get in there to where this oil pump is, pull the bottom pan off, and they see that lower bearing, if that lower bearing's bad, it's very likely you've got problems in your other bearings.
Yeah.
That's above it.
Got it.
You know,
I'd just go ahead and change them anyway. I wouldn't
Yeah.
even- Yeah, it's.
I agree.
Have a shelf life, just like
Yeah.
when your car on a rotor.
Uh-huh.
Anything on a rotor has shelf life, it's carrying the weight of
Yes.
all this. So I'd just go ahead and do it, I mean,
well,
question.
I agree with you, those bearings that we're talking about, it supports the generator, but the shaft,
It's
the
carrying all the-
turbine, everything
trying
we just
to-
spent all the money to redo rides on those bearings.
okay, so you'll come back to us when we get with
Yeah.
Clifton, and they'll give us a full, not just 10,000, but with the, all three bearings.
That's exactly
I
right.
think what we know right now, based on our conversation with them, is that oil pump and that bearing needs to be replaced,
Yep, yep,
And that's-
lower and at a minimum.
the lower one. But when they remove the shaft and when they get in there, they can check the others.
Yeah.
So definitely this one needs to be replaced, and so that's what we would like to
Were
move
these
on.
ever replaced before?
They were years ago, from what I,
Many years
yeah,
ago.
from what I understand from Charlie.
The problem that we heard was that there are sensors and relay switches on the other bearings, and when they overheat, it basically kicks off the generator automatically to keep from superheating.
Yep.
That's great.
And it has kicked off before in the past, and so
And they had to
that
set
means,
idle.
that means there's downtime, we're not generating
Yep.
power, so there is seemingly a overheating issue with those other two bearings.
That's what I'm saying, it's already telling you you got a problem.
Yep.
so
But they can check it for sure when they
Right now's the
change
time to do
this
it.
Okay.
Change them. That's my recommendation.
I just didn't think about it being just the turbine that had been done, and we saw that.
For the record, all of that's back together. What was sent off and done, every bit of that's back together and in place. It's a matter of working on the generator now.
Couple of weeks, you'll have that done.
I hope.
This is one area that I want to be more generous with CIP as opposed to more restrictive. I don't want to shortchange hydroelectric in any way of fixing any of that stuff that needs fixing. So I just want to make sure that we're not being too restrictive in some of those things listed. And then based on your meeting with Vital Clarity and your draft, has Schnabel looked at this final proposal and given any kind of input?
Well, what we didn't do is we didn't pull Schnabel in to really guide us as we went through the workings of the hydro operation. They're really there for the dam.
Right.
So we had them on a conference call, and what I did is made sure they were there listening, and so if they sensed any red flags, they could weigh in.
Okay.
And so there were none. So based on our conversation and based on what we were drafting, they were seemingly okay with where we were, but I had their ears right in the middle of the conversation to make sure they were involved.
One more thing back on these bearings, on these sensors. The sensors need to be checked and calibrated, as well as the trip equipment, because that could also be a problem at not overheating, getting false readings. But I believe in changing the bearings, but the sensors need to be checked and calibrated. If not, they need to be repaired as well, because that's all an electrical interlock, and one false reading, it trips out.
So just so we know, what we don't have programmed in here is if those other two bearings and the sensors and the other things have to be replaced, That's not programmed in here.
Right.
So we would come back to you and for a request to take that out of fund balance, and we got a healthy fund balance right now. So just so you know, if they get in there and they check, we'll be coming back to you for a request. And if we could do it this year, would be optimal, because now's the time to do it. And it would be a matter of us coming back and asking to take the money out of the fund balance. So,
And I'm sure some of this stuff has to be done in a certain order.
It does.
Priority.
It does.
I noticed the turbine water seal had dropped off of the original list and is now for next year with almost, well, the original was 35,000, now it's for next year with 60,000. Is that something that needs to be on this list for this year, that turbine water seal? It's down there, but it's for next year now.
I'm not, is that the small generator? Or the?
I don't know. It
Yeah,
just
we
says
don't-
turbine
that might
water
be the
seal,
large generator.
and it was on the original list for 35,000.
That water seal is on both generators.
Both, so it's
Yeah.
both seals? And they
That's what it
can
is.
fix that when it's in place as opposed to having it apart, or?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And what Charlie's told me, that is a take out what's there now and replace, and not have to remove the shag.
Two-piece seal.
It's not a major tear down to do. And so by moving that on another year, we didn't feel that was as critical.
Okay.
As some of the other stuff we have now. And some of those numbers out there, 2, 3, 4 years down the road, are probably not 100%.
I got that,
So,
yeah.
you know, as we get closer to it, we tried to stay as accurate as we could on this next year's numbers with the information we had to go with. Some of the other numbers later years out, we'll have to tweak them. They may come in a little higher or a little lower, but we were using the information we had to give those numbers.
Well, if we're close enough on our estimates on something like this, you know, a $5,000 or a $10,000 even budget amendment, fund transfer isn't so significant.
Right.
But a $50,000 or $60,000 fund transfer all of a sudden,
Yes.
because you didn't think it would cost that much, is significant.
Yes.
So, and that's all I want to try and prevent, is
I'd say what we have in front of you is based on the best information and of the knowledge we had in the room. But as we get into these things, as you know, you learn different things and you say, hey, we need to adjust this number, or we need to attack this problem before we do this one. And so
there's going to be adjustments, and it's a lot of new territory we're venturing into, and I understand that, and so.
good thing is now we have a list.
Right. Can I ask a question on this? David, probably, Taylor Gate hoist cover? Is that the,
Where you
Marty.
floodgates, that's the top of your ridge.
just one thing for me to mention, because I won't remember when the time comes we get around to it to do that, is we really have to consider, especially if we get the state talked into fixing the bridge where we keep the bridge over the dam. If you're coming down from Buffalo Shoals Road from the north side, you can't block the vision there, because I almost got someone last week, and what happened was, it was foggy, and I think the person saw me coming around, and they stopped, I think, and I couldn't, they were in a shorter car, I couldn't see them. And I was not in my truck, but in Kathy's car. And they were behind there, and I couldn't see them. So that made my mind, the light went off.
We will definitely keep that.
We'll have to keep that in mind.
I mean, maybe even as far as I've wondered, because of what you're saying there, why there's not red lights.
I agree.
At each end.
I agree.
To where you got a green light one way and a red light on the other.
I
And that
agree.
way you know when you come up there, whether you're good to go or whether you have to stop.
I agree.
And I think that's very possible to do, and that might be something we could talk to DOT
Yeah,
about.
I think DOT, there should at least be, there's still people who don't realize it's one lane.
Right, yeah.
But there needs to be a flashing or something that lets people know it is one lane. You know, I don't see it often, but I see people stop and yell at each other, you know, because they don't realize that it is a one-lane bridge.
Let me call state, they'll give you something else. They got me on speed dial.
Good.
And we do feel there's a way to save this number by about 30%. Don't we?
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
There's another design.
And the good news, Sam, which I didn't really see, you're on the program later for this financially, the hydro station's doing really good, isn't it?
Great.
It's 107,000 last month?
Right, which was a little under the previous month at 108. So
Yeah.
they've raised up
Shut down
definitely.
a couple hours.
And year-to-date, we're over 600,000, and our budget was 4 and change, right? So already, we're only 2/3 into the year, and we're 50% more than our income
With one generator.
with the one generator.
Yeah, that's
And
right.
what our record, I believe, one year when Chris was here, was like 735 or something like that, was the record.
That sounds about right.
Production,
Oh,
so we're well on track to beat
Yep.
that this year.
Yep.
so.
Well, and another observation, this might not be the place, but we talk about the sewer. It's been determined now that we're about 600,000 gallons of water a day infiltrating into the sewer system, right?
something like that.
Passing through, and that's going through our sewer system, not our generator. I don't know what 600,000 gallons of water, extra water a day would do in generating power, but it's got to be significant. How long do you have any figures about, an hour's worth of generating, how much water does that?
I don't know what that flow is. I could probably get those numbers.
I'd be interested in knowing that. If we're losing 600,000 gallons a day, it's got to be, that's got to be significant. That we're going to take care of with the sewer repair.
Thank you.
So that's it?
That's it.
Okay, so that's a little background, a little more than a little background for the public and us. Thanks. So is there anybody from the public that would like to speak to this subject? Any words of wisdom or questions or whatever, comments? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Make a motion to close the public hearing on the capital improvement grant program for our plan for 2019 to 2024.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Cameron seconds that. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, that gives us, let's move ahead now. We're into item number 6, which is the council liaison reports and comments. Who'd like to go first?
I'll start.
Okay.
We had a utilities board meeting on Tuesday at 2 p.m., March 5th. Discussion was on the projected gallons on our sewer project. Right now, our engineers have come up with a estimated average wastewater flow of about 246,000 gallons per day. The size of the plant to cover the peak wastewater per day should be calculated just over 500,000 gallons per day. You want to upgrade your plant to handle the maximum capacity as well as future growth. Right now, the wastewater plant estimate, just the plant, not the piping and getting to all our community, would be somewhere in the $5 million range. Some of the members of the board went to Constantine Falls on a field trip, and David went. They were extremely impressed with the system that they had there, and the plant cost was quite a bit less, but they were really pleased with the way that plant was put together. It's operating well in similar conditions that we have. So they're working right now with the engineers to start to fine tune it. Your utilities board is working well. They're going to narrow down which pump contractors and which pump suppliers they would like to spec out. Probably end up with 3 or 4 specifications. And to save our community and people money, we're looking at packaging that separately as a separate bid. The town would buy these pumps that are put at your house and at your location. And then they'll be estimating the cost per home, and also maintenance would be covered by the individual homeowner, but the town would have the parts and the equipment to do it. So all this is being worked out, and that's my report for the utility board this month.
Okay. Commissioners have any questions for Commissioner Cameron? If not, who would like to go next?
I'll go next.
Okay.
ABC Board, we actually had a joint meeting with town council. Is that before we had council meeting last month or after?
I think it's after.
After.
It was after. So we met with a joint workshop together. There's a lot of things going on that right now. As far as moving the ABC stores kind of on hold till we do some more studies cost-wise. We're looking. It's looking like it may not be the best idea to move the ABC store to the facility there that the town bought a few years back, where the Subway is the best, I guess, the bank, where the bank used to be. We have a lot of some other options that are being looked at. We're getting some bids and some prices and some estimates involving some realtors for values of property and different things like that. So right now, as it stands, that project is kind of in the holding pattern. That accurate?
It is, with the exception that we said we would go ahead and release an RFP and see what the bids would be for renovation of that building that you just spoke of.
Yeah.
So we'll feed that into the decision-making process.
Right. So that's pretty much it from the ABC. LAB, Lake Advisory Board, we met last Monday. We had the Marine Commission meeting before this, and we had a number of different subjects that that came up as a result of that. Your LAB board does a lot of hard work and makes a lot of tough decisions. Dean does an excellent job as Lake Ops Director, and we appreciate that. But a lot of things happening on the lake as far as the dredging and all those things, and I don't know if we're going to do a separate report on that, but the dredging is going. We kind of don't want to talk about it because we're afraid something will go wrong if we talk about it too much. But it's just pretty incredible compared to how it's ever been before, to be perfectly honest with you. And so that's all good news from that standpoint. But Dean did deploy the trash boom that was purchased by the town, and had that in place for a couple, 3 weeks back. We didn't get a lot of debris, but at least we saw that. I think there was a picture somewhere, and something that came out that had a picture of that, maybe in the Lakefront Owners booklet. There was a picture of that, so that seemed to work well, and so that's another positive thing. And then we all know we've got the Classic Boat Show coming up in May, and a lot of interest in that. And Ms. Creechy was telling about the number of inquiries and everything that she's getting online, and that's going to be great. That combined with the antique car show too. So Mr. Whitmer, the Whitmers are putting a lot of work into that as well. You've seen out there the new dock thing that's being put in place with the fingers for the boat show, and that's going to be quite the event. So that's all I have.
Mr. Kim, if I may add, as some of the folks in the audience and commissioners may see, and as you know, the sidewalk is being poured on the peninsula to basically connect the boat slips that have been added at the end. And so Mr. Whitmer and I were out there just today, and we're looking at that sidewalk. And in the conversation, there was a desire to continue that sidewalk. So Lake Lure Tours has basically agreed to extend that sidewalk even further so that it is handicap accessible all the way to the gate. And they've agreed to pay for that. So that was a great addition and a great contribution that they're going to be making.
And those slips are not public rental slips. Make sure that's their special events like this boat show is going to be and stuff like that. So and they are movable, where they can be removed and put back in place and for whatever. So it's going to be a win-win for the town and for Lake Lure Tours and their activities there.
And thank you for the additional sidewalk.
Absolutely.
That was a great addition. Thank you very much.
I would add one thing that I know is bubbling up and coming through the LAB, and that is rowing on the lake. You notice the collegiate rowing teams are out there now, which we always look forward to in the spring. It's kind of like the signs of spring. You see them out there. In addition to that collegiate level rowing, we've had a couple, non-collegiate, a little older, come to the LAB and ask if the town would be receptive to them. They are what's called master's level competitive rowers, and asked if we would have any objections to them training on our lake on a regular basis, and our answer was no. That would be a nice addition to the lake. They train very early in the morning before most of us are even awake, a lot of it even before sunrise, and so we didn't really see any real problem with conflicts, with the normal boating traffic. They are very sensitive to turbulent water. They go over pretty darn easy, but the master's level folks know how to keep them floating even when the boats come by. Anyway, they also now have been coming back to the Lake Advisory Committee. I think the second time they came, and what they would like to do, and I think so far we're supporting that, is they'd like to form actually a master's level crew team. I think the name is a little bit up in the air. We just wanted to make sure it says Lake Lure somehow. So they are in the process of recruiting some other rowers to join them out there. They typically row in 4-person, even up to 8-person sculls. And so they're looking for some partners to row with. And I think they've just purchased a multi-person scull. I'm not sure if it's 4 or 8, I think it's 4, from a collegiate team that was turning them over. And so you'll see that out there if you get up early in the morning and look out. I'm not exactly where they row, but we're kind of excited. I mean, I'm excited about that. I think the LAB expressed some real support and excitement over that. I mean, that's the kind of thing that we think is a healthy use of our recreation. This couple intends to move here, which is, be members of the community, and hopefully that's a kind of good sport recreation we like to see on the lake. I think we're going to need to be addressing some management guidelines, rules, regulations, whatever you want to call it, to make sure as this evolves that we don't have conflicts, that we anticipate and we regulate to the extent we need to how they use the lake and when they use the lake. But that's just something I think you'll see.
I don't know if you're aware, but we've already got 2 great candidates in town to be rowers. Mark Helms and Jonathan Hinkle were rowers all the way up to training for the Olympics and came that close to being there. So they're already highly trained rowers right there.
And one last thing, quickly, we have another special swim that's tied with the Olympiad that's going to be in June. That's going to be an event that goes off from the beach down toward the main event, and that's something new that's being added. It's a competitive swim where they register, and I think what maybe looking for how many possibly swimmers? 120, maybe something like that. So
This is the first time.
right, so it's a first time event, but we've got all these great things that are helping to bring folks in, and that's great to have our facility and our resource used for those kind of things. So.
I think so. Okay, any questions for them? Okay, John, you want to do yours?
Not very quick, the zoning and planning board did not meet.
Yeah. Stephen?
The Board of Adjustment and Lake Structure Appeals Board did not meet. The Parks and Recreation and Lake Department have been very busy. They had a meeting on the 26th of February, and then a lengthy workshop on March the 6th, which I was not able to attend, and then the regular meeting on March the 7th. At the regular meeting, we had a presentation from Mrs. Lusk and Mr. Aaron Jones regarding a dog park, which is not a new idea, but bringing it back again for discussion and looking at it and see if it's something that's optimal that could be done here. Regarding the rowers that you were just speaking of, they have now, when they briefed us on March the 7th at the Parks and Rec and Lake meeting, Their new title is Lake Lure Racing and Rowing Retreats. They're currently developing their website, hope to be online soon, and they'll be training people in the rowing of sculls, as well as having events with it, racing and regattas. So that's their basic plan. We have an alternate member on the board that was appointed in December, attended one meeting, and has since been unable to be contacted. Several people have attempted to contact her, and unfortunately, the board made a motion on March the 7th to remove her from the Parks and Recreation Board, and the motion was seconded, and all were in favor. So therefore, I make a motion that this council remove Ms. Huff from the Parks and Recreation Board and open it up for acceptance of applications as an alternate member.
All right, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Commissioner Cameron. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay,
That's the end of my report for
very
today.
good. Well, thank you.
Those are the main things.
Yeah, that Parks and Rec Board, I would echo that. They've gone from
They've been busy.
100 to 150 miles an hour, I would say that. All right, well, that then would bring us to item number 7, which is public comment. I did see your name on there. You want to come up and introduce yourself and tell us what you know here?
Just checking, which is at the top of Boys Camp Road. So I'm here to talk trash. Don't get excited. I am organizing a group of people to clean up the roadside trash on Boys Camp Road, which is about 2.5 miles long. We did it 2.5 years ago, or 2 years ago approximately, and it's time to do it again. So I do have about a team of 10 people so far, and I will note that Commissioners Weber, Moore, Kilby, and Cameron have property off of Boys Camp Road. So you can reach me at lakelurebay@gmail.com. Okay, so.
Paula's email address.
Paula did contact me, yes, sir. Okay, so.
My wife tried and you didn't speak Vietnamese.
Oh,
sorry.
Yeah, that's a big excuse. So I have notified the police department chief that we're going to be doing this on March 28th, Thursday, at 9 a.m. And it usually takes us about 2 hours, and we have teams coming up Boys Camp and then teams going down Boys Camp. So hopefully won't be a big interruption or problem. Yeah, I have that already. I'm going to mention that. Yeah.
What time did you say?
Pardon me?
What time on March 28th?
9 a.m. And we meet at the main gate of the Lake Lure Village Resort. So there's a little area there that you can park. We can meet. We figure out the teams, 2 people on each side, on each side of the road and going down and then going up. So last time we did it, my husband took about 24 or 26 bags of trash to the recycling.
Whoa.
So it was packed. So this is what we're doing. So I would welcome any volunteers.
Laura, can we promote that, or we should communicate that, let's say, yes.
If you want to
Call for
put
volunteers.
My email address, you don't have to live or have property off of Boys Camp to pick up trash,
Oh,
ever, actually. So, okay, in addition to that, Rutherford County is also doing a countywide litter sweep. And this is what this is. This is what Shannon just handed to me, which I already knew about. But April 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th. And again, it requires about a 2-hour commitment. Not a big deal. any one of those days, you can volunteer to be in different parts of the county to pick up trash. That, I can also give you information. Any questions?
I just want to say thank you, because you've done this before, you're doing it again, and you're very adamant about picking up litter in different places. Thank you. But I want the audience to know, too, that when the Carolina Climbers Coalition was here, Mo volunteered graciously to stand out there at a booth in the damp, cold weather.
It was not ideal weather.
And pretty much be a representative of the town for that event. As a result, made some great inroads on dealing with that next year. Hopefully it will improve, get bigger, and thank you.
Well, I feel that's part of my responsibility as Park, Rec, and Lake Board member. But I will also point out that we had over 300 visitors come to Lake Lure in an off-season time, and even in the inclement weather that we had, they had a day of stewardship, and that was on that Sunday. And they picked up over 2 dump loads full of trash around the Chimney Rock area. That's amazing.
They do.
Yeah.
So
Fantastic.
it's a good thing.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mo. Okay, is there anybody else from the public that would like to speak on anything? This is your good chance to come on up and, all right. If there being none then, we'll go ahead and move on to take up the consent agenda and a motion. Do we have a motion to adopt?
I'll make a motion that we adopt the consent agenda as amended.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Commissioner Kilby. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. All right, well, that moves us into the unfinished business where we added the item here. Commissioner Weber suggested the Asset Management Board. There's some unfinished business associated with that?
Yes, sir, mainly because I had a couple of recommendations regarding the resolution that was presented, and we did talk about this last month and asked that this resolution come forth to disband the board. Everything in the resolution that was presented is okay. I just wanted to add a couple of things where the third whereas is, whereas the Town Council of Lake Lure, North Carolina accepts the January 30, 2019 minutes.
What page are you on?
Page 78.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah, it wasn't in,
Or 79, excuse me. I better put my glasses on.
Sorry.
Whereas the Town Council of Lake Lure, North Carolina accepts the January 30, 2019 minutes of the Asset Management Advisory Board, and here's where I want to add, thanks all of the members for their faithful and diligent volunteer service over the last 4.5 years. And then you go to the next whereas the Asset Management Advisory Board has completed its task, and I wanted to add at that point, in an exemplary manner, and provided a town inventory list and final report to Town Council in February 2019. Then the next line, now therefore be it resolved by the Town Council of Town of Lake Lure, North Carolina, the following, we have to delete the word amendment, because this is not an amendment, it's a standalone resolution. So those 3 basic changes is what I recommend. And here's a printed copy that Michelle's already typed those in, and I highlighted the actual stuff prior to reading it off to you.
excellent. I think those are all great changes, well deserved by that group. They did a wonderful job. Any other suggestions for this? So we have the motion. We should have a second. Commissioner Cameron seconds. Discussion out of order there, but any other further discussion about that? If not, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Okay, thank you, Stephen. That was a good catch on that. All right, under new business, we have 5 items. The first is a request from Cecil Jones to waive the peddling ordinance and the security deposits for an event in the Meadows. And Shannon, who should?
Is Mr. Jones in the audience?
Here?
He's not in the audience. My recommendation to council would be that you take no action on this request. This request came from Mr. Jones to our town clerk, and then we had Ms. Creegee, who is not only our communications specialist, but our events coordinator, to have a discussion with Mr. Jones. And she may want to brief us on what she learned from that conversation. But my recommendation would be, because he's not present, that we take no action on this request. But I'll leave that at the board's pleasure if you'd like to learn what she learned after her conversation with Mr. Jones.
I agree with taking no action on it, but a couple of immediate things that jumped out is one of the events is for the 23rd of this month, and it's an incomplete application. And then the second event is for a barbecue on May the 12th, and I believe Michelle checked with the health department, and the requirement is you can't serve food in public like that to somebody not your own family, and this is a nonprofit serving it to children in general without a health department approval. So, yeah, I'd say definitely take no action on it. So.
Yeah. All right, so any other comments from the commission? So we're going to just table it. Table it and go on to item B, which is a request to suspend section 92.042C1 of the zoning regulations, which deal with campgrounds, and this has to do with the Olympiad, this swim event that we heard a little bit earlier. And so,
I'm sorry, quite quickly,
yes.
And for our attorney, since this was an official request from a citizen, do we need to do an official motion to take no action and table
The last matter,
Yeah.
or the second, either way, it's probably best to have a motion.
Okay, I make a motion that we table both requests from Cecil Jones due to incompleteness.
okay, do we have a motion? Second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Cameron. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Very good.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
if
sir.
I may, on this issue,
Yeah.
one of the things, we now have really an events coordinator with town.
Yes, sir.
So when we have requests like this, we really didn't have a policy as to how we address this except to bring those requests to you. I think now may be a time for us to establish some sort of policy
Talk on this? Yeah.
that ensures that all these requests are funneled through our events coordinator, and that we basically have some guidelines about whether or not we would even entertain a request before this board in the future like this. So I think having a few policies in place would allow us then to manage this much better than what you just experienced. But tomorrow, Ms. Creegee, Mr. Givens, Mr. Murphy, and Ms. Pruitt are all traveling to Greer, South Carolina to talk with their event staff. So they are starting down that road of looking at programs and perhaps policies and even facilities that we can come back with you in the future. So I just...
So you're already planning on bringing us some recommendations?
We're going to get there. It may take a little time.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
and I would, as long as we're commenting on this, there were a couple things he was asking for, a waiver of the peddler's ordinance. So the second thing was a waiver of the fees associated with using our facilities. Now, having said that, we specifically develop much reduced fees for nonprofit organizations.
Right.
Being a person that's run nonprofit events here, I think that's entirely fair. We don't use one of the rentable facilities, but other events I know that come here, and I would think that, I mean, just as a general policy or direction, I would think we would not waive that, except under some unusual, extraordinary, extreme situation. Right? So there's some input.
Good thoughts.
Got this.
We'll work on it.
They already got a break.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, well, that's enough probably said on that. So the campgrounds, you want to speak to that? I see Kay Dittmer's here. She's the one that that signed the application here, or sent an email, I forget. But anyway, Kay, what's going on here?
How low does this go? Are we okay?
Yeah.
All right, for those who are not familiar, most of you are familiar with the Lakewood Olympiad. It's a 3-day charity sporting event held each year, second weekend in August. All the proceeds from this are given to local charities and service organizations, of which we have many people who help us through this. I'm looking at many of the volunteers right here, and so this is our 15th year, if you can believe that. We've been doing this 14 years. Wow. And so to celebrate, we decided to add something else. So we're going to have a race. We decided on a new event, new venue, and so this will be a long-distance swim race held June 8th, and it will be held on the town beach. And I just want to tell you, we've had such wonderful cooperation from the town, from the Lake Lure Inn, from the people running the beach, the tours, and it's just been, it's made it a good experience for us. And what we're asking for is to use Morse Park for some people to put up tents. And we're doing that for a couple of reasons. Number one, a lot of the people who come here may not be able to afford staying. And we want them to come. We want them to come stay for the weekend. The second thing is that the race business has gotten very competitive. So anything that you can add to your race, like camping, is essential to us. It helps to gain more people. And so that's what we're asking for and I know this has been done before, and as far as I know, it went well. We may have one camp, one person, one tent. We may have 10. We have no idea. This is our first year. But we'd like to give it a try with your approval on that.
This is just like we did with the Carolina Climbers Coalition and the bicycling group that comes through sometimes.
Right.
I have no problem.
Dean, is there any reason why we shouldn't make the property across the river over here available to them as well? They may not want it or need it, but as long as we're making this available, make that available too in case something came up that they could use it.
There's no construction that started on that property yet. I don't see any problem why that's not.
No restrooms would be the only thing I'd bring up. There are portable facilities here, but over there wouldn't be any.
Right.
Yeah, I understand.
It's just one more option, just something that would be available if we wanted to use it.
And eventually, that's where we probably ask them to use that.
Right,
part,
right.
But we'll have those.
Well, yeah, it's going to be a campground ultimately, a part of it, but have we secured all the permits regarding that plan yet?
We've gotten our permitting through Chimney Rock Village.
Zoning.
Okay.
Still looking for the flood permit,
For the construction.
and that's been submitted, so.
So should we allow camping there prior to that floodplain permit being issued?
Well, I think we're in a different jurisdiction, and this just dawned on me. We've got permission to construct the campground, but as far as camping there before a campground is constructed,
we can't do
we're in
that.
Chimney Rock Village's jurisdiction.
I mean, that's a good idea Commissioner Moore had, but we need to be careful.
It was a good idea.
Right now.
As long as, if we're okay with it, if you want, we own it, you could check with, if the occasion arose that you thought you wanted to use it, you just check with Chimney Rock Village.
All right.
And they could,
Okay.
That's reasonable.
yeah.
Okay.
If you feel like that.
All right.
Sure.
Anything else for me?
No.
Well, thank you.
You should at all. Thank you. We appreciate y'all's hard work and dedication.
Thank you. It's a big job. We enjoy it. And as Bob Keith and I have decided, as long as our walkers go in the sand, we'll still work on this.
I'm glad to hear that.
Okay.
Do we want to make a motion?
Yeah. I make a motion that we suspend section 92.042 sub C sub 1 campgrounds of the Lake Lure Code of Ordinances for those attending the Lure of the Lake Swim event from 3 p.m. Friday, June the 7th, 2019 through 12 p.m. Sunday, June 9th, 2019 for the Meadows area adjacent to Town Hall and to waive the fees associated with the rental of the Meadows for this event.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Commissioner Cameron. Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Okay, thanks. That brings us to item C, which is proposed ordinance number 190312, which is commercial lighting amortization. That's the presentation that we heard Brad give before. Is there any further discussion necessary? Are we ready to make a motion?
Well, what we received was, of course, amended from what was in the packet. And as long as we're looking all that, everybody at the amendment, and I hope the attorney has had a chance to review the amended areas. There were 3 sections added, and make sure that it's still okay to form and content.
He says yes.
Yeah, I make a motion that we approve ordinance number 19-03-12, an ordinance amending Chapter 92 zoning regulations of the town of Lake Lure, establishing subsection 92.119, existing non-conforming commercial lighting.
Okay, do we have a second?
We'll second that.
Second by Commissioner Cameron. Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
All right, thank you. Okay, Dean again. You're up on this last item concerning the golf course lease agreement.
No.
I'm sorry. The proposed capital improvement, not yet. I skipped one. Okay, so we have heard the public hearing, the discussion about the CIP. There are a few changes. Anybody want to make a motion to adopt what we saw? Or are we ready to do that, or there's still some changes?
I'm fine, I'm taking a break.
All right. Shannon, where do we stand on that?
You can adopt it subject to the changes that you made today, and all that means is we'll be using that then becomes a guide to continue with the budget process that Sam will be leading us through.
Somebody want to make that motion?
I'll make that motion that we adopt it with the recommendations that were added to it today and the different budget costs.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Kilby. Any further discussion on that? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Now, we're to the golf course lease agreement. Dean, sorry, just a little extra exercise here.
Okay, basically, I'm not looking for any motions tonight. I was tasked with rewriting the golf course lease, getting it prepared. Since it's due to go to end on April 9th, I started looking through the lease, reading through it, and I got to having too many questions. So I came to Shannon and talked to him a little bit and wanted to bring this to you guys to get some guidance on what do you want in this lease agreement. And at the bottom, you can see the staff comments. These are just some of the questions and stuff that came to mind during this, and I just would like to seek guidance from council on how you want to see this next lease done.
So Dean, if you will, just take us through some of the items in the staff comments.
Okay.
That reflects what's in the lease, existing lease, and then maybe reflect on what's being requested.
Okay, right now, they're ending a 5-year lease. Part of my question is do we want to go with a 5-year lease or 2 or 3 or 4 year or whatever that number would be? Right now, our subsidy payment, I believe, is $80,000. You also have a request in here from Dale Minnick stating what he would like to see in the new lease. Do we want to stay at the $80,000, $90,000, $100,000, or somewhere different from that?
In the past years, the town has budgeted for building repairs of $5,000. These are just some of the running numbers that you don't see with the regular payment. Pest control of $1,000. There's requests and the CIP budget for clubhouse remodel, golf cart path repairs, creek bank restorations. These are just some of the numbers that are in this that, doesn't show up on your regular subsidy payment. And we're just trying to see how do you feel and where you want to go with this, so I know what to produce for this board and for the golf course.
Okay, appreciate that. Right now, we had a 5-year term. I'd recommend we go another 5. Anything that we plan in the future is not going to happen time we get studies and go through government process and kind of thing.
I'm fine with 5-year term.
Anybody else want to weigh in? Okay, so that addresses the term. What about the subsidy? Is you including that in that? You're good with what subsidy? What are you recommending, or what we've had, or do we need more discussion on that?
I need more discussion.
It is what it is.
He's currently at 80, and he's asking for 100.
Right.
There's always been an additional man added to cover small repairs to terminate the contract in the back page here.
Right, and he's still looking for those additional amounts every year.
Yeah.
He's looking for an increased subsidy of 100.
To 100.
An increased subsidy of 200.
Well, I mean, golf has always been a part of the Lake Lure experience. It is one of those recreational amenities, though, that costs us, if you add up these numbers, that's $142,500 a year in supplement to support this operation. I hope in renewing this, we're all agreeing that from the town standpoint, it's worth it to us to do that, Bob.
Well, he certainly hasn't been as successful as we would have liked for him to have been. And the original subsidy, I think, was 75, and then for the years, the original agreement for 16, 17, 17, 18, 18, 19 was to be determined based on profitability. And that really hasn't occurred, and I think a lot of that is due to all the storms we've experienced. And then he's had things like the roof starting to cave in on the one area, and it's down fixed, and then the tree falling right on the power controller or whatever, and of all the places it could have fallen. There's been a lot of issues out there. Course doctors didn't do us any favors when they had that contract. And I'm not a golfer, but I hear a lot about the course and so on. And he has steadily improved, or for the most part, the number of participants that go out to play around the golf. He brought Foot Golf in, which has brought in more participants. He ran an ad campaign, which he, if I recall, had 140 or 100 and some odd new members as a result. Now, he said a lot of them may never play here, but it was just such a wonderful option, 3 years for such a certain price, that he had a lot of new members. So he's definitely working at it, definitely trying. He wants the 100 a year of subsidy plus the additional that we normally put in the budget for certain things. As far as I'd like to hear from David possibly regarding the town being responsible for all the building maintenance, and it being such an older building. He says the roof will need replacing soon. The fireplace leaks in rain events, and all logs need to be checked and replaced as needed. That's all additional money that would come into play that's not there. So we need to think about that, but,
So I think those type of items would be just maintenance type items that the town, whether it was golf or whether it was something else in that building, the town would be taking care of the roof. If you don't take care of the roof, you're going to run the building.
I agree.
So those type of things would be almost commitments to maintain those facilities in perpetuity, regardless of whether you lease it whatever term. I think that's the town's really obligation to maintain those assets.
Would it be better if you guys took this for a week or so and thought about it and maybe send suggestions to the town manager?
I think we're, I think we're good on coming up with another contract or not, another lease agreement, because like Shannon says, a lot of these things, they're gonna have to be maintained whether Dale's there or not.
Right.
And, we look at it as a whole because all of the expenses relate to that. But I think that so we don't have an alternative plan in front of us, and he's doing as good a job as anybody could expect. So I'm fine with working out a new lease agreement, even if everybody else is.
Oh, I am too, but I guess the amount of the subsidy is one of the issues. So
well, we could.
I'm okay with the 100,000 a year. I mean, he definitely earns it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, the biggest part I want our community to realize is that when you come to Lake Lure, you love the lake, you spend the day on the lake, what else do you have to do? Or the ladies like to go to the lake and the beach and the shopping, and the guys like to play golf. So it's not just the costs that we're spending, but it's also another enhancement to our community. And like I said, hopefully downstream with our new study, we're going to put tennis courts down there, the pickleball courts, and some other activities that'll help him.
Would that, just thinking ahead on something like that and trying to, and that is the location we're looking at right there, the notion of multi-purposing the existing building infrastructure, we would then have to probably address that somehow in the lease amendment, to allow for that kind of thing.
Right.
I'm thinking that may help that could help the finances of the whole operation if we could find some other uses that we could piggyback on that.
Well, it will, because under the current lease, he has certain responsibilities for maintenance of certain pieces of equipment and certain the building issues and so on. And we got to keep in mind that this subsidy is his pay, his salary, and then plus whatever revenue he brings in, but he spends a lot of that right back into the golf course. Now, what I don't know is does he report his revenue to Sam on a regular basis, and we have records of what that revenue is. Does he do that, Sam, or is the golf course revenue just something he deals with? Maybe we want to track that and maybe look at the options built in there like before, let it go 2 years, and then the third year, fourth year, and fifth year determine it on profitability, and look at what kind of revenue he generates. Because we're not doing that right now. We're not tracking what kind of revenue.
Dale,
He's here. I didn't see him a while ago.
Yeah, he's here. Come on up here.
I knew he had planned to be, but I didn't.
Be here or look for a new job.
Represent.
I'd still like to talk about you like you're not here. So go ahead.
Well, you were talking pretty nice. This past year, we lost $20,000. The year before, we lost 12. And a lot of that could be weather related, because our numbers were pretty good, but just not what we would hope they would be. And right from the beginning, our hope, being altruistic, was to get to the point where the town did not need to subsidize us, and we certainly have not gotten to it. We're doing between 5 and 5,500 rounds of golf a year. We know that we need to be about 10
to break even. So, if that helps.
Okay.
And
All right.
we're more than willing, if the active sports comes down there, we just assume that we would take care of all that.
Somehow, yeah, would integrate
Yeah.
with it, okay.
Yeah,
So
that was-
you prepared to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion. We recommend that we increase the contract to $100,000 a year, that would maintain the requests that are here in the staff's comments and recommendations, and that at a 3-year, halfway through the contract, there'll be a review as far as any additional terms or monies exchanged at that time. Sound okay with everybody?
So we have a motion, do we have a second here?
I
Second for the
second,
purpose of discussion?
with the discussion, I would still like to see you provide in that third-year review, at the end of the 2 years, and review revenue records to show what kind of revenue is being generated there, so.
We'll include that in our motion, and like I said, just have a review at the midterm point.
Yeah, that's fine. That worked the last time.
Right, okay.
And we always thank you for all your support.
Well, we haven't voted on it yet.
I realize that. I want to get that in first.
And we did determine at the Parks Rec and League meeting that we will not have the tennis court near the dog park if there is. Because they would steal.
That's an important decision you've made there. So we have a motion and a second, and
Is
we've
this,
had some
just to interject, is this approving the contract or just the primary terms that we're going
terms.
to plug in?
We haven't seen a contract. so-
Well, and we probably won't see it
Yeah.
because it's going to have to be done by the time the next meeting rolls around, so.
You will see it.
So, yeah.
I'm assuming I'll be working with you on it, so maybe including in the motion
Yes.
that Dean work with the town attorney and the manager to produce a final product.
Okay, you want to?
I'll include those items that the town attorney
There you go.
I second that inclusion.
All right.
and town manager
In town manager.
all work together on that contract.
Very good, so we have the motion, we have the second as amended. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. All right, so before we will adjourn to a closed session, I do want to recognize a couple of important and appreciated guests in our audience tonight. We have the chairman of our county commission and vice chairman of our county commission. That's Brian King is the chairman, and Alan Toney is the vice chairman. Did I get that right, gentlemen? So we want to thank you very much for coming. You're welcome anytime. You may have had more entertaining things to do tonight, but we appreciate you coming here. So.
If I may.
Yes, sir.
I enjoy watching you guys online. I've been watching you online, but I wanted to come tonight, and so Vice Chair Tony speaking in person to TV. So.
Well, good. So we actually are really here. We don't, stay. It's not like the moon landing. Okay, well, thanks a lot for coming. And with that, we'll entertain a motion to go into closed session here.
I make a motion, we enter closed session in accordance with General Statute 143-318.11 sub A sub 1 to consult the town attorney concerning legal matters made confidential by law.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Cameron. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. We will adjourn now to the conference room for the general public. I doubt that there'll be any additional business here tonight, but you're all welcome to stay and have refreshments.
Mr. Mayor, before we adjourn recess in there, I'd like to invite Brad Burton into that closed session.
Okay. We all, commission is in favor of that? Assume? Yeah. By consensus. Yeah. All right.
If you dare. If you dare.
Good. I was at my mom. That's why.
Good deal. Yes.